Okay, so today is the last new section of chapter 8, and we are going to be talking about how to find the area of a triangle. So you might be thinking that you already know how to do that, which is true, but you know how to do it in one situation. So the formula, well, you might know how to do it in more situations, but you should definitely know this one. The formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, not again, 10, where b is the base and h is an altitude to that base. So what that means is that if you have a triangle and you know the base and you also have the altitude to the base is the height of the triangle. So if you know these two, then you can find the area. But today we're going to talk about how you can find the area if you are in other situations. So, how do we find the area of a triangle if the base and the height are not given, but two sides and the included angle are given instead? So, first, let's talk about included angle. That means angle between the two sides. So, you will be able to find the area of a triangle if you are in this situation. So if you're given two sides and the angle that's between those two sides. So if we look at this as an example, we'll talk about how you can do it. These are the formulas, but I want to show you where those come from. So here we have a triangle. We have side A. This whole thing is side B. So we're looking at this big triangle here. And we have the angle between. So let's say that these three were the givens. Okay, so all of those were given. This is not given, the height. Well, we know that if we know the height, we can do 1/2 base times height. But right now we don't know the height, so the question is, can we figure out the height? And the answer is yes. So to find h, what you would want to do is look at this smaller right triangle. So here we know this angle and we know this side, so we can find h. So I'm going to set up, I want the opposite and I know the hypotenuse, so I will be using sine. So sine of c equals opposite over hypotenuse, which will be h over a. And then if you multiply both sides by a, you will get h equals a times sine of c. So if you know a and you know c, you can easily find h. And now the formula that we know for area is 1/2 base times height, where base is in fact this whole side b. So here we know the base b, and now we know the height. So what I'm going to do is I will replace this here. So replace this h with that whole thing because h is equal to that. So now what I'll have is 1/2 b times a times sine of c. And because these are all being multiplied, you can write that in any order. So the standard way to write it is actually 1/2 times a b sine of c. And that's the formula that you see here. So that's where it's coming from. From now on, you can just use these formulas. You don't have to do this every time, though you certainly could. And then the reason that there are three formulas, it's just giving you formulas for all the different situations, but notice it's always the two sides and then the angle that would be between those two sides. So if you have A and B, the angle has to be C. If you have B and C, the angle has to be A. And if you have sides A and C, the angle would have to be B. So let's do an example. Find the area of, I guess I should say, an SAS triangle. So I'm going to draw it just so you have a visual. Just draw any old triangle, A, B, C. Angle A is 40 degrees. Side B is 8. Side C is 5. So we're in the situation side, angle, side, which makes it possible for us to find the area. The reason that we're using a K here instead of an A is because we already have an A when we're talking about triangles, so just to keep it clear, it's a K instead of an A. So we're going to do K equals 1/2. We are going to use this formula. I'm going to now replace everything. So B is an 8, C is a 5, and then we have sine of 40 degrees. And then you can type that into a calculator. So this is the exact answer. And then when you type it in the calculator, you get an approximation. So when I type it in, I'm not going to type 1/2. I'm going to do 0.5 times 8 times 5 times sine of 40 degrees. Hit enter, and I'm getting 12.855. So we could round this to 12.9 maybe. Approximately 12.9. And because we're finding area, we're going to write units squared, or you could write square units. And this would be the approximate answer. And that's that. So you're able to find the area of a triangle if you have two sides given and the angle between those two sides given. And the other situation where we can find the area using what we know is if you are given side, side, side. So this one we're not going to talk about where the formula comes from. We're just going to talk about how to use it. But it's called Heron's formula, and it looks like this. It looks a little complicated, but it's not too bad. So if you are given all three sides, A, B, and C, you can add your three sides together and then take half of that, and that gives you S. And then in the formula, you have S, and you would use that here, and then you have to do S minus A, S minus B, and S minus C. So it looks complicated, but just take it slowly. So what is another name for A plus B plus C, if those are the three sides? Like, what is that called when you add up all the sides of a shape? Called the perimeter. Which means that S is equal to half of the perimeter. So that might be an easier way to remember what S is instead of like memorizing it this way. Okay, let's practice. So we already know, this is pretty clear that we're in the side, side, side situation, so I'm not going to draw the triangle out. But here, your first step would be to find S. Find S. So S is going to be half of all these sides added up. So 4 plus 5 plus 7. And 4 plus 5 plus 7 is 16, and half of 16 is 8. Okay. From here, now we're going to use Heron's formula. So k is equal to the square root of, so the first thing we use is s, and here we found s is 8. So that's going to be 8. Then the next one, and I'm going to write it all out so it's very clear, but the next one is s minus a. So that's going to be 8 minus a is 4. Now these are pretty easy numbers, so you could do this in your head. Instead of writing 8 minus 4, you could have just written a 4. Here, it would be s minus b, so that would be 8 minus 5, which is 3, but again, I'm just going to write it out so it's clear in your notes. And then this last one would be s minus c, which is 8 minus 7. Now I'm going to find what each of these are. The more you can do by hand, the less likely you are to make a little calculator mistake. So this is 8 times 4 times 3. That's just 1, so you don't really even need to write it. And that's 96. So in here, we're getting the square root of 96, which is an exact solution. So if you were ever asked for the exact solution, this is it. And this can be simplified. So 96 is 16 times 6. So this, the square root of 16 is 4. So this is equal to 4 root 6. That's your exact answer. And then to figure out the approximate, I will type in square root 96 to my calculator, and I'm getting 9.797. So I'm going to round this to 9.8. So I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. If you're ever given like a word problem, then you would actually use the given units. So you might be given a word problem where it's giving you like feet or meters or some other length. But if you're not, when you do the area problems, you should technically write units squared, or you write 9.8 square units like that. So whichever way you prefer to write it. Here's some math history. This is the guy who came up with that handy dandy formula for you. So thanks to him, it's easy for us. And that's all I have. The homework's a handout. Hopefully you'll find it pretty easy. You'll have some side, 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 and some side, ankle, side to find the area of. Let me know if you have questions, and I will talk to you soon.